Okay, as you recall, we had talked about the Smart Parents curriculum and how it's a module to help keep your child safe from sexual abuse. It gives you skills and tools to increase your knowledge about their healthy sexual development, how to improve your communication with your child about sexual abuse, and how to help your child stay safe from those who might want to harm them. So last time I gave you this parent handbook, and so we're gonna go over that. So this is for you to keep and for you to write on, and for you to reference as your child gets older. Okay?
This is actually for me or
No,
no? Okay.
you're ruining my video. Okay. So we are gonna start with the healthy sexual development section. So we had talked about how some aspects of your child's development, there's physical, emotional, social milestones. And so they all go through those developmental stages for how they move, they talk, they think, and interact with others. And today we're going to talk about another set of milestones that your child will go through that are related to their healthy sexual development. And that development starts much earlier than those physical changes that you see in puberty. Okay. So it's important for us as parents to understand so that we can promote that healthy development and protect our children from harm. So we are going to go to page 4, the healthy sexual development of your handbook. Um, and this page serves as an overview of the topics that we're going to cover. Okay.
Sorry about the interruption. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Interruptions happen. We are parents first. Okay. So we were just talking about the handbook, right? And so remember, this is for you to keep. And so we're just gonna go through the content, and that way I can teach you how to see what it contains. And today you're just gonna follow along with me. So first we're gonna talk about healthy child sexual development, and then also sexual behaviors that are considered problematic or abusive. This information will kind of help you to be an accurate source of information for your child when they have questions about anything related to sex and sexual development. And it can kind of help you to know what is considered typical and what may be a sign that something is off. Okay. Okay, let's start by finding the section called Typical Child Sexual Development and Knowledge, which you're already on there. So if you can see, like so this is broken down by age groups. So you can read what's true for your child now, and then as they grow up, you can kind of follow along, right? Um, so your kiddo, how old is your kiddo? Which one do you want to do?
A 7-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Do you want to look at the 7-year-old or the 2-year-old today?
Let's do 7-year-old.
Okay, so let's go to the where you would find the section for your 7-year-old. So you have
Is there any difference between gender and sex in this curriculum?
there isn't, um, not in the way that we what we talk about, but it does kind of go into information related to each of the sexes.
Okay.
But remember, some of these changes are before those physical changes happen. Like a lot of the information from even 2 years old, like 6 to 8 year olds that we're looking at are for changes that happen before those physical changes, and so those changes are pretty similar in both genders or sexes. Um, so, so under your child's age, you can see the call out box over here. And those kind of summarize a lot of the information that's here. And so they're kind of brief. So I do encourage you to read the whole thing. But would you feel comfortable reading out loud the call out box with the summary?
Sure. 68-year-olds follow gender roles, play with same gender, might touch their privates, begin request privacy, understand basic sexual behavior, hear sexual topics from other children and media.
Okay. Is there anything that surprises you about that information that you just read?
No.
You've kind of seen that in your kid already?
Yes.
Okay. How will that information help you to support your child's development?
Just to understand that all of that is normal.
Okay. All right, so then let's move on then. Sounds like you're pretty familiar with that to the developmentally appropriate information section, which is going to be on page 8. Okay. I'd like to discuss a key feature of keeping your child safe, and that's to use proper names for body parts. Okay. So naming body parts, like we know from the research that if they can correctly identify their private body parts and accurately disclose if someone has touched them there, um, it helps when you teach them those correct body parts, it helps them to do that. Even as early as 2 year olds, even when they start speaking, and that might be harder with your 2 year old maybe than the 7 year old. Are you comfortable saying the words for the names of the private parts like buttocks, penis, vagina, breasts to your children?
Yes.
Okay. Same for both of your kiddos?
Yes.
Okay, good. Um, and so it sounds like you already do that, and it's really important for you to reinforce those correct names with your kiddos and not use those nicknames. Um, and that like that way they can, if they ever get touched in a private area, they can accurately disclose it to someone and stop it earlier. Do you have any questions or concerns about correctly using correct names for body parts?
No.
No.
No, we do
Okay.
that just fine.
Okay. Okay. So now we're going to talk about what your child should know about sexual development at their age. So they need to know certain information to help themselves or protect themselves from harm. So it's normal for children to have questions, including about sexual topics, and you want to be an accurate source of information for your child. And you want to know how much information is helpful when you're talking to them, right? Um, So this next section, the developmentally appropriate information, did you find that?
I did.
Okay. That has information about what is appropriate depending on the child's age. So if you do want to go to the 7 year old,
Sure.
okay. So there's a call out box with each of the ages, right? Would you those kind of tell you like briefly what the whole text covers? And again, I encourage you to read all of it. But would you right now feel comfortable reading the bullets out loud?
Sure. For 6 to 8 year olds, no physical differences in anatomy, basic bodily functions, basic sexual intercourse, basic information about pregnancy, basic information about puberty.
Okay. All right. So to kind of help us illustrate the discussion about talking to them in a developmentally appropriate way, I would like to role play the following scenario with you. Um, so at the end of each of the age sections, next you'll see those blue bubble speeches with the words parent practice.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then you can even write down the appropriate response to the prompt so that we come up so that you can refer to it in the future. But for right now, let's choose the scenario of the age and gender of your kiddo, the 7 year old. So this one is for 6 to 7 year olds. Perfect. Okay. Um, would you feel comfortable reading the scenario, or would you like me to?
Sure. Your child saw a sex scene in a movie that their older sibling was watching. Your child starts talking about it at dinner one night, they say. And then the boy and the girl took their clothes off and got into bed and started making funny noises as they wiggled around.
Okay. So that happens. How would you respond?
I think I would probably say that yes, that's something that adults do um, in private, and sometimes that comes up on videos and TVs and things. And right now, that's not really age appropriate for you to be watching. But thank you for talking about it, and we'll just make sure that your older sibling isn't watching that stuff while you're around.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, you talked about that it's for adults. It's something that adults do. Um,
Guess I could also ask if you have any questions about it.
yeah. It's also important to like begin informing them about what actually sex is so that they
Mm-hmm.
hear it from you. You kind of said it like, do you have any questions? But maybe like if you that way they can know from you as an that you're an open and honest source of information.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like, is there any way that you could clarify for them? It doesn't sound like they know what they saw, right?
Oh,
And so
okay.
how do you think you could clarify for them?
So probably just say like it sounds like what they were doing was having sex. Like
Yeah,
actually say the word,
yeah. And
even
so
though
like,
it's weird and uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah, so like that way you're letting them know like this is what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then go into that's something that only adults do.
yep. And you can be if there's more questions, it would be appropriate at this age to say something like about what actually sex is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it comes to because they already know the basic anatomy and
Right.
like they know the basics of sex, so you can let them know like the what it is. You know, the man
Mm-hmm.
puts the penis in the vagina, in just very matter of fact. You know, so that you can be that
Mm-hmm.
open and honest source of information for your kiddo, right? Um, okay,
Is
so
there any mention of when something that adults do when they're like emotionally ready or physically ready, or is that something to talk about at an
I think
older
that's
age?
later.
More
I
like
think that's more in like the later because you talk about
yeah.
relationships.
Okay.
It I think in this scenario, like it's that natural. It's kind of that natural setting for you to give them like information.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of came up with something, and it's your chance to like calmly inform them about what sex is in like that matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's something like you said it perfectly, something that only adults do.
Yep.
Because at this point he's not ready for that like relationship whatever. He's more of the gray or black and white area, like kids don't do this, adults do this, period.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing more of the matter of fact what it is, like it is, that would be appropriate for this age group.
Right. Okay.
If you look at the different ones,
Yeah, I'm skimming the older ages now.
are you
So yeah.
skimming the older
Yeah.
ages? Yeah.
Makes
So like
sense.
you can kind of see like um you know, with those older ages, like I think you can talk a little bit more about changes that happen, things, so you can make it a little bit more personalized to them, maybe, you know, rather than like kids versus adults. Um, does that feel like that answers your question a little bit?
Yep.
Or we can also continue and then we can go back to that question if it's something that you're still kind of wondering about. We can look through the rest of the content. Yeah.
No, I think it makes sense.
Okay. So now let's move on to like the child displaying inappropriate sexual behaviors. So that's on the section inappropriate sexual behaviors and what to do on page 17. And it looks like you're already there. Um, so let's look at the information for your 7-year old. And there's those call out boxes again, those at a glance for that section. So same thing. Read the whole thing when you get a chance, but let's just go over those call out boxes right now. Um, So they indicate what they should or should not be doing,
Mm-hmm.
or what they should not be doing, excuse me,
Yes.
and what they need from you. So would you feel comfortable reading for those 7-year-old?
Yes. Should not use sexual language. Need boundaries around touching and looking at private parts. Might touch self.
Okay. So what do you think about those points that you just read.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Especially that they need to know that, you know, about those boundaries, and sometimes they need that reinforcement.
Okay. Yeah. So
Especially because they might not know what's appropriate, and so the biggest part is trying not to like be mean or aggressive or like discipline her about it unless it becomes an issue. But like, hey, you just said the F word. That's not an appropriate word. Just like making sure that they're aware of that.
yeah, and the context they're using it,
Right.
right? Like, if are they using it in just the,
Right.
you know, just to like exclaim, or are they
Mm-hmm.
using it in the action, right?
Yep.
Um, yeah. So it is important that you review those sections for like as your kiddos get older, and I would encourage going all the way back for your other kiddo, for your younger kiddo. Um, because that information changes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
as they grow up, like the things that they do and should do or should not do does change. So that's what we can expect, right? So next we're going to discuss what's considered abusive sexual relationship, or excuse me, sexual behavior. So this information will help you to protect your child from harm by talking to them about what sexual abuse in general is. So if you find that section on page 21, looks like you're
Mm-hmm.
there. Um, so child abuse includes sexual contact with a child by a parent, caregiver, other adult, adolescent, or older child. This is not to say that you would ever sexually abuse your child, but rather that you keep in mind that others may harm your child, even those that you know, people that you know. So let's review what's considered abuse, okay? There's a call out box that describes what that is. Are you comfortable reading those out loud?
Sure. Sexual act, any kind of penetration. Sexual contact, touching or fondling on skin or clothing. Non-contact. Showing child sexual activities or images. Recording child in a sexual way. Prostitution.
Okay. And that can be hard to read, but how will this information help you to protect your child from harm?
I think just thinking about it and having the correct vocab is always good because either when questions come up or if there's any concerns come up or even before that, just
Mhm.
having the correct vocab to like have that discussion. And again, getting back to like what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, and
Mhm.
then beyond that, like what is like abuse
Yeah.
and when you should come talk to me about it.
So next we're gonna to illustrate like a discussion about appropriate and inappropriate behaviors, we're gonna do an activity. Um, so please use this box in your book to take notes. What questions do you have right now?
No questions right now.
Okay. All right, so let's go through this activity then. So I'm gonna say a scenario, and I want you to tell me if the scenario is a green light. That's where the activity is a typical sexual behavior, or from typical sexual development, right?
Okay.
A yellow light where the activity is inappropriate sexual behavior that you need to redirect or discuss with your child, or a red light where the activity is abusive sexual behavior that should be discussed with your child. So that's a little bit more where something might be going on, right? Something might be wrong.
Like discuss and intervene.
Yes.
Whereas the yellow is more of just like you can discuss, but probably just redirect and
Yeah,
say,
just
no,
probably
it's
just
not
need,
appropriate.
mhm, or put a limit or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So a 3-year-old girl asks about why her younger brother has something between her legs. So gut feeling. Is that green, red, yellow?
Green.
Okay. So, like that is an opportunity to talk about the sex differences using the proper terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a 5-year-old boy asked how his younger sister was made. What makes you say green?
Because it's appropriate to be curious
Okay.
about that.
Yeah, and it's that opportunity that where
Mm-hmm.
you can talk to them about
Right.
basics of
Right.
reproduction.
Mm-hmm. It's typical for that age to want to know.
Okay, 6-year-old boy describes two animals he sees on the farm as fucking.
I would say that is yellow because that is inappropriate behavior, and so we would just direct them to use a more appropriate word
Mm-hmm.
to describe what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because again, it's normal to like take notice of that and be curious about it, but
Mm-hmm.
using that language is not appropriate.
Yeah, and I think it's a good opportunity to find out where they heard that language too,
Right.
because that might
For sure.
I would say yellow for sure, but it could turn into a red if like someone was showing your kid something that's
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
And that would be like that non-contact sexual abuse type,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, 7-year-old girl sees two adults having sex on TV and describes them as kissing and wriggling under the sheets.
I mean, they're using appropriate language for their age. I would say maybe yellow because they shouldn't be watching that stuff
Oh
on
yeah,
TV as a 7-year old,
yeah.
but it's normal how they're describing it.
I think the question like is meant to be more like she happens to see it by accident kind
Oh,
of thing. But yeah,
okay,
for
okay.
sure, yeah,
Okay.
they have it as green, and I'm assuming like it's. But yeah, I would say yellow just to like see
Right.
where are
Why
you
are you
having the
watching this?
opportunity to
Yes.
watch this? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they meant it as they just happened to see it, but it's a green light. It's an opportunity to talk about like what sex is and
Sure.
like that only adults do it.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that other one we
Mm-hmm.
read. Okay, 9-year-old boy looks up girls' naked boobies on the internet.
I mean, I think that's normal at that age, but I would say yellow because it's again that's inappropriate behavior, so they need to be probably redirected. Can still definitely ask questions and say it's common to want to see those things and be curious, but it's not appropriate to look those things up on the internet.
Yep. What makes you say it's not appropriate?
Um,
What are you thinking of when it's not appropriate?
well, just that they're exposed. They can be so exposed to other things on the internet when looking those things up.
That are not, yeah.
Yeah, that they're not supposed
So
to. But if
that's
they're
safety, right? Like,
if
yeah.
they're wanting if they're wanting to see those things, I don't know. Maybe there's a from a curiosity standpoint. I don't know. I don't think I'd be comfortable showing them those things, but we could definitely talk about it. I'm not sure.
I think that yellow, because it is curiosity, is very much
Mm-hmm.
developmentally appropriate. What he's doing to fulfill that curiosity is not right, because you're right. There's so much in the internet
Yeah.
that's not safe, and that he could be introduced to a lot more than when he's ready for, right?
Right.
Um, okay, 10-year-old girl is sexting her new boyfriend.
Red.
Yep,
Not appropriate. Period.
yep.
Needs to stop.
13-year-old boy is bragging to his friends about a blowjob he got.
Also red. Not appropriate for the age, and yeah, definitely not appropriate to be doing those things or talking about those things.
Yep. And I think too, like from what we were told from the people that wrote this curriculum, this scenario was actually a kid said that, but he didn't actually know what the term meant.
Oh, so
So
it
it's
didn't
also
even
an
actually happen.
opportunity. It's also an opportunity
Yeah.
to like figure out like what,
Where did you hear about that, or what is
yeah,
that even? Yeah.
yeah, or like to because it could be that, or it could be inappropriate actual sexual behavior that could stem from
Mm-hmm.
abuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, what questions do you have about that activity?
No, I think it's just good to like think about those scenarios and kind of mentally prepare yourself,
Mm-hmm.
especially so that you aren't overreacting when those things will happen, because something like one of those will definitely happen at some point.
Yeah,
So
overreacting or underreacting
right,
too, where
underreacting
you
too.
just like
Yeah.
ignore it and like run away, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we talked about the healthy child or healthy sexual development, as well as sexual behaviors that can be considered problematic or abusive. We talked about using correct words for body parts and what amount of information is appropriate for your child at different ages. So if you can turn to page 22 on the key considerations. Yeah, are you comfortable reading that aloud?
Yes, children develop at different rates, and that is okay. But there are certain behaviors or actions that are considered inappropriate or even abusive. It is important to know and communicate to your child what these behaviors are in order to increase your child's safety.
Okay. Do you have any questions about any of the information we covered?
Nope.
How do you feel about the information?
I'm uncomfortable, but more comfortable now. It's just
Okay.
difficult. It just needs to become more matter of fact and not make such a big deal about it.
More practice too.
Yeah.
All right. The next section is parent-child communication. Um, so in this section, we were going to discuss ways that you can promote yourself as that open and honest source of information for your kiddos, especially regarding sexual development, sexual behavior, and child sexual abuse. So let's go to page 24 on the parent-child communication segment. It gives you a brief overview of the importance of being an open and honest source of information for your child. Um, so you're there, right? So it's important to be that person that your child seeks information from, including information about sexual development and how to protect themselves. To encourage this, you have to establish a line of open and honest communication with your kiddos early on. Establishing yourself as a trusted support and accurate source of information is key to encouraging them to come to you when they have questions or concerns, including about sex. As we progress through this section, we will review tips and tools for becoming that primary source of information. Do you have any questions or concerns about that?
No.
Okay. So when to promote open communication. So on page 25, um, think about think of talking with your child as building with blocks. You cannot build a house with one large block. You have to put many different blocks, and that takes time. So similarly, having those daily conversations with your kid takes time, but it builds a strong foundation. So if you establishing a conversation routine with your child when you ask about their day, with whom they spent it, what they did, that can help. So make sure that you talk about positive and negative aspects of that day. It's also important to talk about sexual development topics. These small, regular conversations with your child can make conversations about sex and sexual development less awkward for both of you. It's kind of that practice we said. It's going to be difficult, but it's going to get easier. And it's important to ask your child questions about specific events that happened. Let's say, for example, that your child's mood seems different today than on most days. It's important to find out what's bothering them. It could be something minor, or it could also be indicative of something more serious. You can ask broad questions about what's bothering them, but also more specific questions about if anyone has made them feel uncomfortable. Although we don't have time to go into the in depth about having these conversations right now, I do encourage you to read through the whole section of the promoting an open communication. So to help illustrate our discussion about how to promote that open communication, let's do another role play. Um, at the end of this section, you're going to see a large purple cloud with the words parent practice. And it has that blank text box. So you can, I recommend writing down any responses that you want to add so that you can refer to it in the future. Okay. Questions before we go into it? Okay. All right. Your child plays soccer with kids in the neighborhood and has been getting additional coaching from an adult. Your child seems to have lost interest in soccer recently and seems unenthusiastic about going to play. Your child says they have a lot of homework to do tomorrow, so they shouldn't go play after school. How would you respond? Okay. All right. How would you respond?
I would first start by asking, just asking why you don't want to go
Mm-hmm.
playing soccer, and then if there was like a natural response that made sense, Um, then probably just leave it at that. You could probably ask like a leading question about like, hey, how's that adult? Like, do you have fun with them? Is he useful? And then just kind of feel them out. And if any red flags go up, I would start asking like more pointed questions of like, if something happened?
Mm-hmm.
Did the coach touch you? Does the coach touch kids in a way that they don't like?
Mm-hmm.
Who is the adult? That would be probably my first question. Who is this adult? Is it someone's dad coming to help or uncle or something? So
Um, Additional coaching from an adult.
it doesn't say who the adult is. So
I think it's the same coach. Oh, I see you're
it's
reading it as there's like an additional adult coaching. I think
that could be
I read
true.
it as like the coach is like paying, like doing more additional coaching
Oh,
with them, but maybe not.
maybe
Okay,
if that's the case, then I would
which
definitely ask like,
whichever one,
how's
right?
that been going with the coach? Like,
Okay.
just
I think yeah, you kind of talked about like what's wrong, right?
mm-hmm,
But sometimes like what's they kind of told you in this scenario, they kind of said what's wrong. I have a lot of homework.
mm-hmm,
I don't want to go. I have a lot of homework. And so like they can kind of with the what's wrong type of questioning,
mm-hmm.
like they can kind of like just go off of that because that's like their excuse.
Sure,
Um so like it's sometimes it's important to ask them like what is it that's bothering them?
right.
You know, because
Is something else going on? Like, what are you? Why is there another reason why you don't want to go?
yeah. So like yeah, I understand you have a lot of homework, but like
Yeah,
is there something else that is bothering you? Like if
right.
you just use the is something else bothering you that
Mm-hmm.
and then if you then move into also asking them if something has made them feel uncomfortable. So open ended is something bothering you,
Mm-hmm.
and then more of that pinpointed, maybe not like is someone touching you, you know, because
Right.
then you don't want to create like this hyper like
Hypervigilance. Yeah.
vigilance about it to your kid, but like you can just be like, hey, if you think of what sexual abuse is it's someone making you feel uncomfortable, right? And
Right.
so if you get in the habit of asking them like it's or something has something happened that made you feel uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you get in the habit of asking that and it's about everything, right? um yeah, is so it's important to notice changes in your kids' behaviors, right? Like those changes in the behavior can be signs of that something is wrong and that it gives you that opportunity and it's important for you to check in with your child. Hola, chiquita. How likely are you to respond like this to your kiddo? Can you like by doing that broad like, hey, is something bothering you? And then more, did something make you uncomfortable or feel uncomfortable?
So pretty likely.
Okay.
We can talk like that pretty frequently.
Okay. Questions on that?
No.
I really like that idea of like if someone or something make you feel uncomfortable because it's really broad but also very pinpointed.
Right.
Um, okay. So in addition to knowing how to communicate with your kiddo, it's important to know where to communicate about these topics. So on page 28, there's that section on where to have an open and honest conversation. It can kind of happen, talking to them can be planned, and can be more natural, like when they bring up like those questions or things that we looked at earlier. Um, those natural opportunities, if you see the graphic on the next page,
Mm-hmm.
um, they can come up around different times during bath time, toilet training, when there's news stories. Um, Using this graphic to guide you, what examples can you think of what will work for your family?
What do you mean can work for our family? Like, what are natural ones that come up?
Yeah, like
Oh.
so seeing an opposite gender parent in the bathroom, you know,
So
like
yeah, that could happen.
walking
Walking
in
in on parents, that could happen.
mom getting pregnant.
That did happen
Yeah,
when Liam's younger son was.
okay. And it could be not just mom, but like other family members,
Mm-hmm.
friends.
Yeah.
Seeing adults,
Seeing things on TV.
that's
Yeah, that's
probably
come
gonna
up of
happen.
or we're like, oh, sexualized song lyrics, that's come up with like what language is appropriate or not. I guess with the younger siblings, bathing time or just seeing each other naked,
Mm-hmm.
that's come up about what isn't appropriate touching.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I think all these make sense.
Okay. So next we will discuss what parents can do to promote communication with their child. So on page 29, um, always talk to your child in a calm manner. So I think you talked about that overreaction, that underreaction,
Mm-hmm.
because that reaction can to their question can really affect how they feel about it, right?
Right. And
Um,
then the opportunity for future conversations.
exactly, yeah. Um, being direct with your response, giving age appropriate information like we talked about earlier. What are some of the things that you already do with your child to encourage them to talk with you in general?
I think the biggest thing is just letting them ask all of the questions that they want
Okay.
and being patient and responding to all of them, even after like the 200th one of the day.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're having those small daily conversations on a variety of topics already?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you need help like brainstorming other ways to increase that at this moment?
Mm, I mean, yeah, if you have other ideas, sure.
I don't. Just kidding. Um, yeah, I mean, I think
I
I
just, yeah, and honestly, I think I just need to be asking him more questions other than like, hey, how was school
yeah,
today? Like asking other,
more
what was fun today? What wasn't great today? Like,
yeah,
who did you see today? Like, I don't know,
yeah,
ask more leading questions.
yeah. Because a lot of times you say, "Hey, how was school? Good.
They're like, good, and
What'd you
that's
learn?
it.
Nothing."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like being more specific,
Yep.
or hey, you know did something happen to bother you
Mm-hmm.
today? Did you get sad, mad? Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so there's a practice for this. So let's choose a scenario that matches the age and gender of your kiddo. Okay, so let's. Do you want to do the 7-year-old or you want to do
Whichever.
the little one?
Do the 7-year-old.
7-year-old. Okay. So your child heard some kids talking about buying condoms. They ask you for some money to buy condoms. How would you respond?
I think I'd first like ask if they know what condoms are and what they're
Mm-hmm.
used for,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of based on that, we could explain what they are and like kind of getting into like kids your age. It's not an appropriate topic. It's okay to like ask about them, and then I would ask like why do you think you need money to buy them? Like just ask those questions and try to stay calm.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, one thing that they mentioned in the scenario here is like you probably don't know because they only ask you for money, right, to buy condoms, so you don't know where they heard about them.
Mm-hmm.
So getting them to like
Right.
talk about where they heard about it, so you can determine whether he's getting accurate information too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Después, después.
Vamos a hablar de esto después. Gracias.
So how could you explain in an age appropriate way what condoms are used for?
Well, since you just asked, I think what I can say is those are something that adults
Mm-hmm.
sometimes use during sex, and there's for keeping adults safe and healthy, and yeah, just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think buying condoms is an adult thing to be doing,
Right. Mm-hmm.
which you
Yeah.
kind of said it, but not like
Right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you could, I think you could say, it would be appropriate to say that they prevent pregnancy and
Mm-hmm.
infections. Like you could say that at their age, but yeah,
They're not actually age restricted though, are they? At the grocery store?
I don't know.
I don't think
I don't
so.
think so. I think like
Would
teens could buy them
would hope
for sure.
not.
I would hope not. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Um. So you were able to like calmly, right? Not it's not just
Mm-hmm.
what we say, it's what how we say it. Calmly explain to your child what they are. and what sex is, providing open and honest forms of communication, and preparing yourself and your child for more difficult conversations, right? Because
Right.
you said it. The way you react right now will determine how much they will come to you later, right?
I think honestly, just being matter of fact and kind of boring about it,
Mhm.
like you're answering, but then like leave it at that.
Well, and like when you're matter of fact, you take away the overreaction and the underreaction, right? Yeah.
And I think kind of taking away that guidance factor,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
to push the buttons.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's more for different ages, but like you can look at those later. So how likely do you think you would be at responding that way in the way that we practice today when something like that comes up?
I mean, more likely now.
Yeah? Okay.
Again, yeah, having taking the time and space to think about it and prepare is very helpful.
Okay. And what can you do to become even more comfortable with this type of talk?
I think just more frequency and more practice, and even just like
Mental, yeah.
mental practice, because like
Yeah.
especially being aware of like when I'm uncomfortable, so like getting mentally prepared for when that comes up, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And then one thing I've heard too is just being able to sometimes almost like pause or skip a beat and be like, "Hey, we can talk about that, but give me 10 minutes
Hmm.
so you can like collect yourself and then talk about it."
Yeah. Well, and that can give you the where because it might not be appropriate to talk about it
Right,
in
if
like
you're in public or at school
or
or whatever,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, we can
Um.
talk about that in the car.
Yeah. Okay. So, in addition to that open communication, it's also very important to have your child feel empowered to promote their own personal boundaries. So, we're going to go to page 31 now. Is that 31?
Yes, it is.
So, we won't go into in depth either on this, but I encourage you to read it. But a personal boundary is a physical space around someone and the degree to which they feel comfortable being physically close to someone else. Each person's physical boundaries vary for many reasons. Regardless, it is an important protective strategy to encourage your child to establish their personal boundaries and to be empowered to communicate when someone violates them. For example, you can teach your child that their body is their space. If something happens at with their body that is not okay with them, then it is not okay, period. Furthermore, they should tell you or another trusted adult what happened right away. You can also model this behavior for your child to understand that no means no. For example, if you're tickling and your child says stop, you stop because they said
Mm-hmm.
stop, right? Um, so let's look at explaining okay and not okay touches on page 33 of the handbook. Would you feel comfortable reading those out loud?
Sure. This bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Explaining okay and not okay touches. It is not okay for anyone to touch your private parts unless they are helping clean you or are giving you medical help. And I would say it depends on who that is too. It is never okay for you to touch another person's private parts. It is not okay for you to show your private parts to other people or for them to show their private parts to you.
Yep. Cool. Okay.
I think for the first one, it depends on who is doing that. Being very clear about that too.
Yeah. And I think the way my pediatrician does it is like she always says it. It's okay for me to do it because I am a doctor and your mom is here.
Right. Yep.
And your mom is here like that. Yeah. Because I think you're right. Yeah.
It's
Because,
okay for me to help clean you because I'm your parent and that's part of one of my jobs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do another role play with the following scenario underneath that. So it says you are getting your child ready to leave for school in the morning and you notice your child seems unusually unhappy about going to school. How would you respond?
I think I just ask, hey, what's going on with you? Is there something bothering you? And then kind of like what we did before, like ask like or a little more specific, like did anything happen that's making you feel bad or uncomfortable or making you not want to go to school today?
Cool.
And then just
Yeah.
based on the response, go from there.
Yeah. I think Open, yeah, open, and then like more specifics, something bothering you. So after asking, they ask you, excuse me, after you ask them what is bothering them, like you just did, they say, Devin is bugging me. He is hugging me too much and tickling me. He also tried to pull down my pants. How would you respond?
And say, yeah, that makes sense. That would really bother me too and make me feel uncomfortable. And I'd ask, like, did you tell a teacher or did you tell anyone else about it?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if yes, just kind of keep asking, like, what happened? How was it resolved? Did the teacher talk to them?
Mm-hmm.
Are you, just to make sure if they're confident or not, if it's going to happen or not again. And then, honestly, I'd probably call a teacher of the school and make sure it's being addressed and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they're aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then just talk to them. This is what you can do next time to kind of reinforce when things like that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that absolutely that's not okay. If something's making you uncomfortable, you can absolutely say no and then go tell a teacher about it.
Yeah. So you acknowledged their discomfort and you said, hey, that sound fun, right? Uh, and then you followed up on like what happened after that, like what is being done. And then you let your kid know that they have a right to not be touched, right? So that reinforcement of that body safety or that personal boundary. Um, and I think you can say like, hey, you say no or stop. And if it doesn't stop, talk to your teacher, kind of like letting them know like if it continues, right? Like, because probably nothing, like if nothing happened and that's, you know, that way you give your kid like that tool to deal with it in the future because it's probably going to happen again, right? So again, those changes in your child's behaviors, it's important to notice them. They can be a sign that something is wrong, and then it's important to check in like you did, and it's important to remind them of the body safety rules or the personal boundaries. Okay, how likely are you to respond with those things?
I would say pretty likely as long as I remind myself to like take the time to do that. Especially like in this scenario, it's like morning, we're probably trying to get ready, everyone's in
Yeah.
a rush. Like
It,
sometimes taking a beat and like taking the time to have those check-ins is important.
and it sounds like you kind of just went to like, let's go fix it.
Yeah.
You kind of did went into that like,
Let's go.
who am I gonna go punch? Like,
Yeah.
which is a very natural way to react. But like, I think if you think of, the acknowledging, letting them know, just like we do it with all the other emotions, right? Um, in that check in with them, like, how are you doing? And then reminding them about the body safety rules. Like, so like if you kind of go into that sequence, right? So you notice something's off. You ask them the two questions, like something bothering you, something making you feel uncomfortable. And if there is, you remind them of those. They can say no. Even with more things that may not be like abuse, but I don't know. Okay. So we have one more scenario. So let's choose, where are we? Let's choose a scenario for the age of your kid. So you're going to find it on, yeah. So 6 to 8. So your child says to you, Uncle Billy says I have to give him a hug, but I don't know if I want to. What? Oh, because is it, okay. Or Aunt Jane, right? Uh, Whichever one. How would you respond?
Um, I'd say yeah. Sometimes I don't really like it when people hug me too. That's okay. I'd say it's common for us to give like hugs to family members when we say hello and goodbye. But if that's something that you don't want to do or it's something that's making you feel uncomfortable, then you don't have to. You can just say goodbye in a different way.
Yeah, yeah,
And
perfect.
next time you don't want to, you can. And if they're saying that you have to, you can
yeah, you just reinforce that personal boundary and like, and you gave your kid like that opportunity to problem solve. How else can you say hello
Mm-hmm.
or goodbye, right?
Right.
Um, so in this scenario, they don't want to hug their
Mm-hmm.
uncle or their aunt.
I guess I would ask too if there's a reason they don't want to.
Yeah, you can, you know, but I think just acknowledging them.
I can say not that it matters the reason, but it's always good to ask those
Well,
questions.
sometimes when you say reason, like a lot of
Especially if it's
times,
because it's a specific person in this case versus I don't want to give the family member hugs.
yeah, yeah. I think when you say why, like you kind of get people on the defensive, and so they kids might feel the need to rationalize why that
Mm-hmm.
like I think when you say like why don't you want to hug
Right.
Aunt Jane, you know?
Well, I think that's why it's important to say that's okay, that's fine,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I think so too.
is there a reason you don't want to, or you just don't feel like it in
Yeah,
that moment?
perfect. Yeah, because but yeah, making sure that you are saying like
The boundary is okay.
your
It doesn't always
boundaries
need to be
okay.
a reason.
Exactly, because that's one thing that they mentioned, right? Like regardless of what it is, if it's
Mm-hmm.
happening to their body and they don't like it, it's not okay. So you're reinforcing that. Okay. Next, we're gonna go to the secret and surprises on page 35. Would you feel comfortable reading the bullets out loud on the secrets and surprises section?
So surprises soon to be told or shared. Surprise birthday party, birthday gifts, surprise trip to a theme park. Secrets never to be told or shared with others. Secret touching, secret game.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. If Devin from our previous scenario had told the child to not tell anyone that he was touching them, would that be considered a secret or a surprise?
That's a secret.
Okay. Um, it's considered secret touching. So a secret is something that the abuser usually tells the child to never tell or share with others, such as about touching or a secret game. Okay. Um, yeah. Do you have any questions about that?
No, that
Okay.
makes sense.
In this section, we talked about who, when, where, and how to communicate with your child and how to promote that honest line of communication. We also discussed how to encourage your child to assert personal boundaries and what to do if someone violates the boundaries. Any questions about what we covered?
No.
How do you think you will use this information?
Just like before, it's just good to kind of keep things in mind and have the right vocab ready for when these conversations come up.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna do now child safety. So in our work together, you have learned various skills and techniques to keep your child safe from harm. This section will help you to keep your child safe from those who might want to harm them sexually. Parents are the main individuals who promote well being and safety for their children, including their sexual safety. By taking some basic precautions, you can increase your ability to protect them from harm. So, we're going to go to page 38 on child safety. The first page gives you an overview of what we'll cover during this section, which you can read more later. And then you'll also see the facts about who is at risk for child sexual abuse. And you can see it's fairly equally distributed between children aged 4 to 12 and older, meaning that the parents of all children can benefit from these prevention messages. Okay. So why is prevention important? Prevention, what is it? But what is prevention? Sorry. Prevention means doing something to reduce the likelihood that something bad can happen. So think about it like how we wear seatbelts to lower our risk of injury or death in a car accident. So the chances of being in a car accident are low, but we still wear the seatbelt, right? So this analogy is true for preventing sexual abuse too. You take certain precautions and you can increase the likelihood that your child will be protected in the rare case that something or someone does try to harm them. Many of these behaviors are also good parenting practices just to protect your child in general. Okay. So we're going to go to page 39 under monitoring your child's activities. And in that section, you will learn about monitoring activities inside and outside the home. So monitoring just means knowing what's going on with your child, who they're with, where they are. Monitoring is important because the most common settings where sexual abuse happens are in the child's home or in the home of the abuser. Other common settings include schools, sports leagues, faith centers, and clubs. Generally, any place where older children or adults have access to children. As a parent, it is your right to know what your child is doing and who they are with. It's okay to ask questions, to drop in unexpectedly, and to say no. No matter what, always trust your gut. We'll learn about what questions to ask in a bit, but for now, the most important message is that to help your child safe, it's important to know where they are, who they're with, and what they're doing with that person. When your child is at home, it's important to reinforce boundaries and rules you establish, including rules about nudity and sexual situations. Adults and children who are 5 years or older should be appropriately clothed in the home, and sexual situations should be kept private from children. When your child is not in your immediate care, it's important to know the people that are with them. Okay, so let's talk about ways that you can monitor their activities. Like, for example, dropping in unannounced. And that may not be possible, but we'll be happy to look through some solutions with you. Okay, so we're going to do role play for different scenarios. So let's choose the one for the 7-year-old. Okay, you drop in unexpectedly to your child's softball practice. You see that your child is sitting on the bench looking sad, while everyone else is on the field practicing catching. One of the adult coaches is sitting with your child talking to them, and the coach has their hand on your child's leg. How would you respond?
Um, this is the tough one because just hearing that like immediately triggers me and makes me want to go fight people. I think rationally, what I should do is call my child over to me
Hmm.
right away and make sure they're safe and like talk to them and probably go put them in the car and then go talk to that coach
Yeah,
and just say like, this is what I saw. I find this extremely inappropriate. And then yeah, those are my initial thoughts.
yeah. So you interrupted it.
Mm-hmm.
You interrupted. What's going on? Like, um, and you mentioned ways or things to prevent any more one-on-one time with that coach, right? Because that one-on-one time is what puts the child at risk
Mm-hmm.
if there is something going on. Um, and you kind of like let your child know, hey, I'm here for you.
Right.
Because you said instead of telling your kid, hey, what's going on, you ask the coach,
Right.
like, what the heck,
Yeah.
not
That's
necessarily what the heck, but like just interrupt it.
no. I think I would be what the heck in this case.
Um, so like, how would you find out what happened? And if your child is being singled out, like you would want to do that when the child is alone, right? So you said
Right.
you put him in the car. How would you follow that up with your kid in the car?
I'd just be like, hey, I saw that you were talking to coach and that he was touching you, and I'd ask like, hey, what were you guys talking about? Why were you guys off by yourself? What was the coach saying to you? And start it that way, probably.
Yeah. And I think it's also like, again, to like make sure that they know you're in their corner, your kid, to in that like
Right.
at the same time reinforce no one,
Like, I don't think you did anything wrong is a big one.
yeah, like no one should be touching you without your permission,
Right.
and it's okay to say no. Um, and I think asking them because you saw that they were looking sad, like, hey, like, well, it
Oh.
was something bothering you, like you looked sad.
Yeah.
Was something bothering you? Was the coach making you feel uncomfortable? Maybe,
Right.
like, but I think just like you saw that scenario and you saw that as a red flag of your child looking sad and spending one-on-one time with an adult that might have been breaking your child's personal boundary rule.
Mm-hmm.
by touching them, right? And gave you the opportunity to intervene, and you did in the scenario. You supported your child by removing them, and then that reminder of the body safety rules. You know that they have that right to not be touched. Any okay? Let's see. All right. How likely do you think you would be in responding in like that, like in a similar way to a similar situation? Um,
I think pretty likely. One thing I just thought of is, especially initially, making sure that you're not overreacting or underreacting.
yeah.
So like letting that just happen would be an underreaction
Hmm.
because it's not
Letting it
appropriate.
pass, like not intervening.
Yeah, not intervening or waiting until afterwards,
Hmm.
and then overreacting of like starting yelling or like go like having
Going off on
like having a
the
physical
coach.
altercation with the coach
Yeah.
when it could have been just like,
What's going on?
yeah, hey, what's going on? Yeah.
Let's go. You know,
Yeah.
and following up with your kid. Yeah.
And following up with the coach on the other
I
end
think
is
too. I think that too. Like, hey,
oh,
listen.
100%. That's not okay.
Yeah, just say.
Like, yeah, whether that person meant harm or not, it's still inappropriate, and you need to keep those boundaries.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and those safety rules. I think for all
Right.
kids, the safety rule of like when you're coaching, avoiding one-on-one time with one kid,
Right.
right?
Or, I mean, you can have a one-on-one like discussion or training session. That's okay, especially when there's other people around.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like, but and
parents
even
especially.
and other parents around and other coaches around and other kids around, like that's okay. But
Yeah.
like having that one-on-one closeness and touching is not appropriate.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Okay.
No.
Okay. Now we're going to discuss the importance of getting to know the people around your kid. And it's on page 42. It is common for people who engage children in inappropriate behaviors to be known and trusted by their family and by the kid. To increase that child's safety with other people, it's important that you know who they're spending time with. This is referred as vetting. Vetting involves carefully checking out a person's background and knowing who they are and what they do with your child. So you'll see that sidebar on vetting people and what information you should know. These are questions that you can ask individuals who might be with your child like a babysitter. Um, for instance, you might ask them like if they have worked with kids before, how long they have worked with kids, if they have references, how they manage one-on-one time with children, or if they have any training in sexual abuse or awareness. So just to like help illustrate the vetting, let's do an activity. So for this activity, let's pretend you are interviewing me as a new babysitter. What questions would you ask me? And feel free to use that sidebar to kind of help you.
Say like how long have you been a babysitter, or how many other kids have you babysat for in the past?
Mm-hmm.
Can you provide some references
Mm-hmm.
for people that you've worked with in the past? And can I call them, please? Um, yeah, that's how I would start.
Yeah, I think if you're able to like background checks would be a good idea if you're able to do that. Um, let me just see. I think you can let them know. Um, you can let them know that you and your child have awareness about sexual abuse and you could say something like, "Hey, my child and I are educated about child sexual abuse. What about you?"
Right.
Like I think that just opens that if it was someone that wanted to harm your child, they probably won't after that, right? If you're just kind of say that.
Yeah, maybe.
Um,
Drawing a bit of a line in the sand.
maybe, yeah. Do you feel comfortable? Would you feel comfortable doing those questions with like people that you were leaving your kiddo with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
The one about if it had sexual abuse training, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's like a younger, like people we've had in the past, or just like younger either. So
Mm-hmm.
I think me asking that might be kind of weird. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Might either have my wife ask that, or uh, might be somewhat uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be uncomfortable. I think just like with all the other topics with your kid, when you keep that calm, matter of fact,
Yeah.
like you kind of get rid of
Mm-hmm.
that a bit.
Or maybe just saying it more like a statement, like you did. Be like, hey, we've done this training. This is something we're very cognizant of. You know, we like our kid is very cognizant of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. One second. Let me just look up. So, okay. Sorry, just remember that. Okay. So now, let's find the section on grooming in that handbook. It's important to know or be aware that how any person interacts with your child, whether you have vetted them or not. So, grooming is a type of interaction used to gain the trust of a child, and it can involve giving gifts or singling out a child for special attention. So on page 44, you'll see the one-on-one time with adults section.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there, it just talks about how it's important when an adult and an older child is spending too much time with your child, especially that one-on-one. If you can limit one-on-one time, that's a key strategy to reducing the risk of a child for being harmed. It's important for children to have some one on one time adults, like you were saying before, but it is equally important to notice how frequently this one on one time is occurring.
Well, I think you can do it like it's saying here in like a public venue,
Mm-hmm.
or like yeah, you're
You
one on one,
mentioned
but I can still see
be
you.
around.
I can still see you from across the field. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing's gonna happen. You know.
Yeah. And then the next is screen time safety. So, in addition to knowing about inside the home, outside the home, it's also important to keep them safe from what they're exposed to on TV, movies, games, media, internet. Knowing what your child is accessing during their screen time and knowing who they may be interacting with your child with them, who they may be interacting with. Excuse me. So on page 45, there's a bit about screen time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go over several steps that you can take to protect them from harm during screen time. So first, it's important to establish screen safety rules. Each family will have different opinions about what's appropriate during screen time. So it's important to talk with your child about what is acceptable in your family. These rules can include limiting the number of hours your child spends in front of the screen, using parental control devices, or lock inappropriate TV shows, channels, games, websites. It's important to review movies, websites, and shows before they have access to them. That way, you know what your child will be exposed to. Keeping a computer, TV, and video games in the common areas. That way, you can see what they're seeing. And being aware of movie and TV show ratings. This can help you to know what's appropriate for them. As you'll see on the following page, we have examples of TV and movie ratings and what those mean for children depending on their age generally. Do you have any questions about any of those steps? Do you think any of these four steps will work for your family, or how do you see that
No, I think
happening?
they all make sense, and we already do all of those things.
Okay. So on page 47, there's a section called Developing a Child Safety Plan. A child safety plan helps your child know what to do if they're in a situation with a person that makes them feel unsafe. So let's review the three steps on that child safety plan. Did you find it?
Mm-hmm.
The first step asks, who can your child talk to or call if they are in trouble? So by identifying a set of trusted adults that your child can reach out to, you're creating a network to keep them safe. The second step is where can your child go if they're in trouble? It's important to identify safe, common, open places in your neighborhood where your child can go if they are in trouble. And the third and final step asks, what is your family safety phrase? By identifying a 2 or 3 word phrase your child can use, they can let you or another trusted adult know that they are feeling unsafe, especially as they get older and they might find themselves in situations where they're not with you, like
Mm-hmm.
in their friends' homes.
Good call. That means their phrase.
Ujú.
Hablo en español.
No precisamente, mucha gente habla español, incluyendo la persona que va a ver este video.
Pues sí, seguramente.
So now that we've gone over the steps for that child safety plan, let's create one together. So if you go to page 54, you'll find a blank safety page. Um, okay. So who do you think, like, are there other people other than you and your wife that you would tell your, and I think you would involve your child at this point? What do you think?
Yeah.
Right?
Honestly, I think you could probably
Come up with
ask most
people.
of these, or answer most of these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What secure places do you think you could talk to your child about at home or in school?
Um, and the neighborhood we've already talked about, like neighbors
You've
who
already done
they
that.
see
Okay.
that who they should go see. Probably we've always mentioned it kind of in relation to like fire or like a medical emergency. But if there's
Mm-hmm.
something else going on, we can mention that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at school, we've already talked about to like go talk to the principal or someone else at the office if there's a issue with a teacher or something like that going on. Um, as he starts getting into more sports and after school activities, we should start talking about that though.
Mm-hmm.
And we do not have a 2 to 3 word safety phrase, so we'll have to discuss that as a family.
Yep.
That's actually a really good idea.
And it can be like something that can be like, for example, if like he doesn't have asthma, but like he can call you, if he's at a sleepover, let's say,
Mm,
and he can call you and say, "Hey, Dad, I forgot my asthma medicine."
yeah.
And like it sounds so benign to the other person where they might not make anything of
It's
it.
not completely random either. I mean,
Yeah,
it's gonna be
but that
obvious.
your kiddo's telling you like, I don't feel comfortable here. I don't feel safe. Like,
Yeah.
come get me. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. Or I don't know. Could be anything else, or they can work something you can be sure that your child is telling you they're not feeling okay. Okay. Um, and as your kid gets older, like it's important to like continue to like look through this, right? Because there might be different. You said before, like as you start practice, like there's gonna be different things that your child does where they might need that extra information. So there's a title, or there's a on page 48. There's a table title: "Sign something is wrong." Do you find that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It this talks a little bit about like behavioral, emotional, physical, or other signs that they can demonstrate what something is wrong when it comes to sexual abuse. Just because they're demonstrating one of or more of these doesn't necessarily that sexual abuse has occurred, but it's important to use the skills that you learned today to check in with them about what is wrong. Let's pick some signs something is wrong and then read them now. Would you feel comfortable reading some of them?
Sure. All of them, or just a few in each thing, or
However you want.
um, behavioral signs, social withdrawal, refusing to go to school or be with someone, drugs, alcohol, wearing excessive layers of clothing. I would have
Hmm.
guessed that, but that makes sense. Just anything out of the norm. Emotional, depression, anxiety, hypervigilance, withdrawal, low self-esteem, frequent crying, physical, other signs. Yeah, those all make sense.
Do does anything surprise you, or what surprises you about this information?
think no surprises again. I think it's just part of like being present and being like paying attention to your kid,
Mm-hmm.
just so that you can be aware of like when things change. Because I think that's, and it could be something not related at all to this topic. It could just be something
Mm-hmm.
else going on that's still worth a conversation.
Yeah.
So
And I think using those check-in like
yeah,
strategies, yeah, you can get to, yeah, just someone's
yeah.
picking on me or something more
Mm-hmm.
insidious is happening.
Yep.
Okay. So the chance that your child will be sexually abused is low. But if you suspect something has happened, or if your child says something did happen to them, or someone did something to them, it's important that you know what to do. This section provides helpful information in the rare case that something does happen, and I want you to have that just in case, okay? So please find the section titled What to Do If Your Child Tells You About Abuse on page 49. If they disclose something, you respond the same way you would if your child brings any concern to you. It's important to remain calm, not overreact or underreact, right? Like you said, listen to them and let them know that you believe them and tell them that the situation will be taken care of. Do you have any questions about what we just discussed?
No, I think obviously that'd be a really, really hard conversation, but staying calm and being that like strong base, that strong foundation is really important.
And I'll give you the number for the local um,
Wouldn't it
child
be?
abuse hotline.
Oh, there's a hotline for that.
There's a child abuse hotline where you can talk to anyone and like um, just so that you can get police involved and all of that.
Okay.
Um, in this segment, we talked about steps you can take to protect your child from harm. We discussed how you can monitor their activities, who they're with. We talked about the child safety plan, and we discussed what to do if you suspect something is happening. What questions do you have about the information we covered?
Think I have any?
How do you feel about the information we discussed today?
Very uncomfortable, but it's again, it's important and think good things to be thinking about.
It's hard to think about it.
Yeah, it's hard to think about.
How do you think you will use this information to talk with your child?
I think just having more frequent talks like about stuff like this just to normalize it,
Mm-hmm.
especially again before as he gets older and things are more frequent or like more extreme, just kind of being prepared for those as he does get older.
Yep. I think you should feel really proud of yourself. Um,
Okay.
yeah, like you said, it's hard to think about this,
Mm-hmm.
just to think about it. And so I think you're taking an important step to protect your child, and you should feel proud of yourself. And you mentioned it. The more that you think about it, the more that you practice it, the easier that it gets. Um, in all of these skills, like so you have now these skills, you know, like to help keep your child be safe,
Mm-hmm.
and you can continue reading this as they grow. You can keep this, and if you have any questions in the future, like I'm always here as a resource too. So thank you for your dedication of keep your child safe from harm.
Thank you. I just thought too it's going to be useful for other kids as well, not just my own.
Also,
Like when they have friends over and there's any red flags, things like that, or like when we're coaching and there's any red flags,
mm-hmm.
just being more aware of those,
Yeah.
of the red lights.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.